Hi there, and thanks so much for joining me for another tutorial. I'm Erinino, and today we're going to be painting these loose lilacs in a glass vase. There's a couple things I wanted to point out. First, I've changed my desktop and I am having some lighting issues, which I will be working to sort out. So I apologize for that. The other is I wanted to point out that this painting wasn't going according to plan. I was struggling a bit with the amount of water and pigment, and I almost gave up on it, but I persevered, and I decided that it would be good for you to see how I pushed through it and how I, just got past my struggles and ended up with a painting that I was fairly happy with. So I hope you enjoy this video, and if you want to see more, please be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. So let's just jump in and get started. Okay, to start, we'll just do a rundown of the materials I'm using today. I have my Baohong Academy cold press watercolor paper. It's 100% cotton, 140 pound. I have my Royal Talons Van Gogh paints in my palette and a jar of water and a paper towel. I have 3 brushes today. These are all Curry's brand brushes that I'm going to be using for this. I have a size 10 and a size 2 round in their 2500 series, and I have a size 6 round in their 2400 series. And you will also need a pencil and an eraser. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is draw my glass vase, and I'm just going to do a straight line. I'm not going to get into, wild and crazy perspective here, and it's just going to have a bit of a smaller mouth than the base. So I'm just going to bring these lines in like so, and then down. They should be a little rounded, I guess. And then I'm just going to curve them out. I'm going from left side to right side because it's just, I find it easier to keep them more equal that way. I have a hard time keeping something equal on the left side and the right. I don't know what it is. Something about the way my brain works, I guess. I don't know. That looks okay, except this looks a little crooked. And it's okay. If it's a little wonky, I'm not going to sweat it. So now I just want to draw in where I want my lavender stems to go. And I'm going to want one just curving off to the left like so. Just like that. And then another one going up this way. And maybe a medium-sized one there, and then another small one here. I think that ought to do it. Okay, so now I'm just going to lighten those lines. So I've already put some purple in my palette. I'm going to start with my number 6 brush, and I've got some permanent blue violet here in this corner, and in this corner we have, and then I'm taking some Prussian blue, mixing it here with that violet, okay, to get a bluish kind of purple. And it's so hard to tell on my palette while it's this new and it's beading so much. That's one thing I don't like about that. And then here I have some of the violet with some rose. Okay, so I've got the purple, permanent blue violet, a pinky purple, and a bluish purple. So I'm going to start with the straight purple, and I just want a light wash, and I'm going to start with this curved one here, and I'm just going to put kind of shapes down, and I'm going to rinse my brush off, just tap it into my water as I go along, and just making sure to leave white space in there. Now I'm going to go into the pinkish purple. So I'm not doing any flower shapes. I'm just doing kind of very loose. That might still be a little dark. I'm just going to tap some of it up. And while it's still wet, I want to go to my number 2 brush. I need a brush holder. I'm going to go to my number 2 brush because it doesn't hold a lot of water and a lot of pigment, and I'm just going to tap in some deeper areas. Hopefully that will bleed out. Now I'll go into the bluish purple. Okay, and I'm still leaving white space. And if you find this, is getting too heavy, you can always tap some of it out, or pick it up with your paper towel. Just pick it up with your brush. I think this might be a little heavy, but I'll let it dry and see. It might be good. I don't want it too pale. I didn't really get the pinkish kind of color that I wanted though. See if we can get some of it back in here. Okay, I don't want to overwork this, so I'm just going to leave it at that. And then I'm going to go back to my number 6, and we'll do this guy up here. And since I didn't get a lot of pink in that one, I don't want to make this one too pinkish. I guess I can. And just make sure that you're keeping that kind of cone shape that lilacs have just as you go down the stem. Follow the shape of the stem, but make sure you keep the direction of that kind of cone. And again, this is a little more than I wanted. I'm going to try some bluish purple now. I'm going to end it, and I can't even speak. Okay, so I'm going to end that there. Then I'm going to take my number 2 again, and we'll do the same thing. And just tap in some darker areas. Because I tapped up that water, it's not going to bleed very much, but whatever doesn't bleed, I can coax along. Do I sound tired? It's kind of late, and I feel tired. So I apologize if I sound tired. So I'm going to try to coax some of these bleeds along. This is just kind of relaxing. So don't do what I have a tendency to do and overwork this. Make sure that you leave the white space that you need to leave, because this is just going to be so loose. Now there is another one here. I'm going to turn my paper for this. I'm starting to think that I should have started these with a bit of a slightly smaller brush. I'm going to try to get a pinker tone in there now. There's a lot of pigment on my brush. I'm sure glad these are loose and there's no rules, because I don't seem to be following my own advice and keeping this reasonably light. Now these ones are touching, and I don't know if I'm going to bother worrying about making one look like it's in front of the other. I just don't want a lot of pressure here and just want to keep this kind of light and loose. So now I'm going to go to my number 2 again and just tap. And again, because I picked up some of that water, we're going to have areas that don't bleed all that easily. And they'll need some coaxing. No biggie, that's okay. And I think what I will do is make it look like this one is behind there. So I'm going to take my number 2 brush and just a little bit heavier pigment, make this look like it's kind of behind that one. Okay, I don't want that bleeding in too much. Okay, just so there's some kind of starting point and ending point of those 2 lilacs sprigs. Okay, that didn't quite work. Hopefully when we get the stems in, it'll work. So anyway, I gave it a shot. Didn't work. We have one last stem over here. I think I'm actually going to move this out and down a little bit. And I definitely should have done this with a slightly smaller brush. Because this one's just holding too much water, as you can see, because I keep having to go in and pick it up. So anyway, do as I say and not as I do, and I'm showing you some of the things not to do, which works too, I guess, right? Maybe make this a little pointier. This one could be a little pointier too. Could also come out a little bit. That's better. Rinse that off. Go to my number 2. This one seems a little, whoops, that's a lot of paint. This one seems a little more pink than the other 2. It's all good. So just adding a little bit of depth in there. Kind of like, I'm kind of tossing around the idea of like ditching this and starting over because it isn't quite going the way I wanted it to. But I figure, you know what? It's kind of good to show that you don't walk away from a painting. I'm going to do that so it looks like this one's behind. I'm going to do the same here. Why not? So I'm just using negative space here to kind of make it look like one sprig is in front of the other. I don't know if it's working. If it's not, it's not. If it's not, it's okay. And I'm also going to lighten this up a bit. It went a little darker than I would like. Ow. And then just looking at this, I just see now with the little extra depth there that I want to just kind of go in here and just do a couple of the little flowers, just a little heavier. As I said at the beginning, I have to be careful not to overwork it, and maybe I should just leave it. So I'm going to leave it. So now I'm going to go into some raw umber, and I shouldn't use my little, well, maybe I should, but I'm just going to use my number 2. So my raw umber, and it's kind of like greeny, a little like brownish green, kind of a khaki color. And I'm going to add a little bit of burnt sienna to that, just so we get kind of a woody kind of stem color. And just with my number 2 brush still, I'm going to now decide which one is in front. So I want to make it like this one is actually in the very front. So I'm just going to draw a stem down. Where I hit the mouth of the bottle, I'm just going to stop there. And then I'm just going to do very fine lines just where some of this white space is. And then you can do some out just to kind of join up some of these little flowers. You don't have to go crazy, just a little bit. That should do it. Then I will do this one. No, I won't. I will do this one. And that's just going to come down here. Okay, and when it comes into the vase, I want to have it come all the way down like that. But in the meantime, since we know where it goes, we'll just use that to draw the stems up the middle. Just like that. And then this one. So it's just use whatever brush you have that has the finest tip on it to do this, and just use the very tip. Okay, you don't want the stem to really stand out all that much. So now that I don't have a lot of paint on my brush, I can go in and do this one in the back. And I think that's enough. Now we're going to move on to the jar. I want to do more work up there on the lilacs, but for now we're just going to go to the jar. And I'm just going to take that Prussian blue and just dilute it right down. It's actually kind of bright. Maybe I will add in some Payne's Gray. Okay, so we've got that. So I'm just going to paint in the rim all the way across. I will leave some petals hanging down there. Cleaning off my brush, tapping it off with my paper towel because that's a lot of pigment there. Maybe still too much. Now what I want to do with this is make sure that I get a highlight on the jar. So I'm actually going to take my number 2, get some of that pigment off, and I'm just going to outline, whoops, the very edge. It's a little too light. Just like that, and then I will soften it up a bit here. We're not doing perfect reflections, and but I do want it to somehow look a little bit like glass. Okay, so I've just got a kind of a hard edge with a soft edge on the inside, and then I'm going to do the same thing over here, but not all the way along, just on the neck. Okay, and then I'm going to have it actually come in a little bit. Then I'm going to just dilute it right down because I don't want it as dark on this side. And then I'm going to soften this edge up and just kind of playing around until it kind of looks half decent. Again, use a small brush so you're not kind of dousing a lot of paint or a lot of pigment on here. And then I want a reflection on this kind of rounded edge. Okay, so you don't have to fuss with it too much, just as long as you leave some light areas, you'll be good. And I wanted to switch to my larger brush for this because I don't want it drying on me too quickly. But make sure you don't go in too heavy-handed with the pigment, okay? So I'm going to leave that white edge and I'm going to come all the way down. So I'm leaving a reflection down here. Then I'm going to leave a reflection here. And maybe one over here. And it's not, realistic lighting, but as long as you leave some kind of reflection on there, it's going to be representative of glass. So this one I want to kind of blur out a bit. I can't see because of the reflection of my light, but that's okay. This one I'm going to leave a hard edge. And it'll dry a little lighter as well, so don't sweat it. I'm just going to tap a little bit of it up, make it a little lighter. Mind you, I've got some staining here, so we'll do this as a bit of a shadow. Okay, so that's that. Now I'm going to go in back to my smaller brush, my number 2, and I'm going to use that same mixture of that grayish, and I'm just going to do some shadows along these edges. And then some kind of shadows under here. And then another shadow just down this side. Like I say, I don't know if this is real-ish looking, but I think as long as you give it some shading and some highlights, it's going to look like glass. Okay, I think that's good enough. We can maybe go a little bit darker on this edge, not too much. Maybe a little bit darker right on the top edge of the rim. And I think that's good enough. I do. And then what I want to do with the lilac is I want to just put one more lilac in there, but it's going to be really faded. Just kind of, you know, so you get that impression that it's tucked away there in the distance. I don't think my dirty water's really helping me here. We can even do one up here. Actually, you know what? No, I don't think I will. I'm just going to put some in here, faded, just so it doesn't have a big gaping white hole in the middle there. And I'm going to take my number 2 again and just tap a little depth in there in that far one. Not too much because we want it to really look like it's in the distance. But because we did that, I do want to put in a little stem. I think this may be too wet to do this, I don't know. Actually, you know what? We'll do the stems in the bottle. So we're going to have this stem from here, and it's going to be a little distorted, so don't worry about, you know, keeping it perfect, because let it get distorted. And where it hits that reflection, you wouldn't see it, okay? So skip the reflection and then come all the way down into the jar. That could be a little lighter. Just mixing up some more stem color here. Okay, and then we've got this guy coming down from here, so we'll bring this one down like this and also kind of distort it. It's a little dark. Just tap it up a bit. And then we'll have this one come down. And maybe have it distort the other way. I don't know how it would work, but that's okay. Okay, and then we'll have our one from the background. No, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. We're missing one. I need one more guy coming down from him. So I'm just kind of eyeballing it. Would come down here. Maybe we might see it poke through here a little bit. I don't know. Okay, like that. And then I'm just going to take that stem color really watered down and just put just a few little lines there, and maybe one in here, and then another pale. Like that. And I think I'm pretty happy with that. I'm tempted to go in and add a few darker petals, but I just don't want to. I guess I could take them out if I do and I don't like them. I don't know. Actually, I don't, you know what? I don't have a lot of paint. Maybe that's the paint gods telling me, don't do it, don't do it. I'm just using my number 2. It really wouldn't be that dramatic. Just on these guys, you know, but just for a couple of pops. And I think that's it. Time to leave her alone. Okay, let's get it off this cardboard so we can get a better idea of what it looks like. So there are your loose lilacs in a glass vase. I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial and that you found it helpful, and I want to thank you so much for stopping in on my channel and for supporting my channel. I really appreciate it. So have a great one, you guys. Take care, and I will see you next time.